a disease of intellectuals? Epilepsy has affected millions of people, from beggars to kings. It is one of the oldest conditions of the human race with a rich and distinguished history. The earliest references to epilepsy date back to the 5th millennium BC in Mesopotamia. Ancient people called an epileptic attack as the falling sickness. They thought epileptic seizures were caused by evil spirits or demons that had invaded a person's body. Priests attempted to cure people with epilepsy by driving the demons out of them with magic and prayers. This superstition was challenged by ancient physicians like Atreya of India and later Hippocrates of Greece, both of whom recognized a seizure as a dysfunction of the brain, and not a supernatural event. Epileptic seizures have a power and symbolism which, historically, have suggested a relationship with creativity or unusual leadership abilities. Scholars have long been fascinated by evidence that prominent prophets and other holy men, political leaders, philosophers, and many who achieved greatness in the arts and sciences, suffered from epilepsy. Julius Caesar is portrayed as having epilepsy. In the epic movie, Caesar and Cleopatra, starring Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, Caesar expresses his fear of having an attack while he is addressing the Roman populace. Caesar had 4 documented episodes that might have represented complex partial seizures, and may have had seizures in his youth. However, other conditions have been argued, such as low blood sugar or shaking chills from malaria. Alexander the Great, who lived from 356 to 323 BC and conquered much of the known world, may have had epilepsy, but evidence is unsubstantial. He was reported to collapse once after taking a strong medicine for a respiratory ailment brought about by swimming in an icy river, but there is no definite historical record for epilepsy. Tsar Peter the Great, father of modern Russia, developed a brain infection, encephalitis, at age 21 and thereafter developed seizures with twitching of his left face and left body, and sometimes loss of consciousness. Prince John, the youngest son of King George V of England around the time of World War I, was hidden away from the public, because of epilepsy, until dying from an epileptic seizure at age 13. Napoleon Bonaparte is said by Professor Hughes to have had symptomatic seizures resulting from kidney failure as well as psychogenic seizures resulting from stress. Pope Pius IX, who in the 1800s became the longest-serving pontiff in history, had childhood epilepsy and to have died from a heart attack resulting from a seizure. Martha Parker Custis, the stepdaughter of George Washington, had uncontrolled seizures, and the president attempted to help her control them with the valerian root, mercury, spring water and bloodletting. U.S. President James Madison was said to have either epilepsy or psychogenic seizures, with historian R.A. Rutland reporting Madison to have monthly high fevers, diarrhea, and seizures similar to those suffered by epileptics. Vladimir Lenin, revolutionary founder of the Soviet Union, developed seizures in his later years and died from status epilepticus recorded as lasting 50 minutes. In 1919, an assassination attempt left a bullet in his right neck. 3 years later it was removed, and shortly thereafter he had 3 strokes which may have been the cause of his epilepsy. However, other historians argue that he had seizures for years, which were publicly ignored because of his political position. Senator Ted Kennedy first manifested his brain tumor by having a seizure. Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky, Russian novelist, short story writer, essayist and philosopher, wrote letters speaking of his own epilepsy, which was present by time of his release from a Siberian prison, if not before. Dostoevsky instilled characters with epilepsy into at least 4 of his novels, and gave detailed descriptions of fictional seizures. Dostoevsky's literary works explore human psychology in the context of the troubled political, social, and spiritual atmosphere of 19th century Russia. Leo Tolstoy, master of realistic fiction, had convulsions in his last months of life in 1910, as part of a terminal illness. Count Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy is widely considered one of the world's greatest novelists. Painter Vincent van Gogh is on poster charts for epilepsy organizations as an example of a historical figure with seizures. It is indeed likely that he had seizures, possibly resulting from consumption of potent forms of absinthe liquor, in those years containing toxins, in Paris at the end of the 19th century. He additionally had bouts of manic depressive illness that could have been mistaken for seizures. The English Romantic poet, Lord Byron, had several episodes of shaking, foaming at the mouth and unresponsiveness, believed to be either epileptic or psychogenic seizures. Among Byron's best-known works are the lengthy narrative poems Don Juan and Childe Harold's Pilgrimage and the short lyric She Walks in Beauty. He is regarded as one of the greatest British poets and remains widely read and influential. Thank you.